A new version of COVID-19, that's a new strain of COVID-19, may already be in Nigeria, and that's coming from the Minister of Health, and they're actually saying that this is a very, very real possibility, like very, very likely. And I'm going to be explaining what this would mean for Nigeria, what this really means, and what can be done about it. So that's what I'm going to be discussing in this very video. Now, again, like I said, a strain actually means that there is a new version of that virus. It's still basically the same virus, but a little bit of variation in it. So there has been some mutation in the genome of the virus, which means some things that happen or that can happen to the former one cannot happen to this one. There's just a little bit of difference. So it's almost like you have a white goat and then a black goat or something like that. So it depends. There are some situations that would affect the white one and that may not necessarily affect the black one. That's just being very reductive, but that's what I'm just trying to say. So now what is happening right now is that all this virus, this COVID-19, the coronavirus, is actually mutating, and that's what happens to any form of microorganism, which means it is spreading out, it is changing due to the environment, due to so many factors. It is actually changing randomly. So many things is changing in it right now, which could really make the race towards getting a vaccine or towards getting a drug to be more difficult. That's what is going on right now. So it's very, very dangerous if that is what is going on. Of course, 2 months ago we had about 20 strains that have been identified globally. So 20 strains of COVID-19, which means 20 different versions of COVID-19 already identified globally. Now, that is very, very serious. It's something that is warning all the scientists that are developing the vaccines, which means if they are not very careful, they may end up in a situation where they have to be dealing with COVID-19 the same way they have to deal with the common cold. Now, the common cold is a lot less deadly compared to COVID-19. The common cold is just what you get when you have some sniffles and you just sneeze and all of that. You blow your nose and all of that. But there is no drug for that thing. All you can do is just to manage the symptoms. So when you use Activate, when you use Procode or whatever you use, you are basically managing the effect and the symptoms of the virus. That's basically what you're doing, because the common cold is basically a type of coronavirus just as well. So that's all you are just doing, just managing it until your body can then fight it, and then you'll be all right. So it's not exactly the Activate that you're taking that is curing the common cold. It's just suppressing the symptoms of the common cold, like the running nose. The same thing with the COVID-19. All those people who have been recovering from the hospitals, what is happening is that they just focus on the symptoms that those people are having. So if it's chest pain, if it's headache, if it's body temperature, whatever it could be, they treat those things, and until the body system of the person, that's the immune system of the person, can then fight against the virus successfully. So there is no drug yet. So because you see people coming back home doesn't mean that there is a drug or there is a vaccine yet. So if all those things have been confusing you before and you have been thinking that maybe that just proves that this thing is phony or that proves that this thing is fake or whatever like that, get it right now. So this is what is happening. So again, having 20 different strains in the world, and then it's 2 months ago now, who really knows how many strains of this virus is going all around? And of course, in Nigeria, it means there will be different strains already. Like, it is almost a given that we must be having different strains right now. So the labs in Lagos, like different labs in Lagos, are now sequencing. They're trying to sort of find out the genome of the virus, different virus samples across Nigeria, to compare with the index case, that is the case that came first to Nigeria, to see if we still have the same exact type of virus or there are now different strains of the virus. This is really going to help us to be able to know how to address the pandemic and know how to address the way the thing is spreading in Nigeria, because variation and all this sort of mutation that is happening to the virus that can cause different strains doesn't mean that the thing is necessarily going to get more dangerous. There are some things that would affect the virus that may make it less dangerous. So all those things factor in, but the problem there is that you might have a variation or have different strains to the extent where that the virus that you actually developed the vaccine for, let's say we already have a vaccine right now, might have already, like, we might have different versions of that virus to the extent that the vaccine that you created is never going to be able to be effective against it. That is the reason why we don't have any sort of cure or any sort of vaccine against the common cold, even though it is something so minute like that. We have different treatments for malaria, we have different treatments for different diseases that are even much more worse than that, but we don't have any sort of serious like cure for the common cold, because the thing keeps mutating like rapidly. So the sort of common cold you get during this season is not going to be the one you're going to get the next season. That's why you're still going to contract the virus yet again. And that brings us to the danger that it's really into this COVID-19, which means if this thing is really mutating so well and mutating so rapidly, it means that we can get to a stage where you might be infected more than once with COVID-19, which means, let's say you get infected by the first strain in, let's say, around March. Let's say by the time you get to June, July, you might be infected with another strain. So don't just think that simply because you've been infected before, it means you can never be infected again. And since different strains of a particular virus can be more dangerous than each other, you might get the milder strain at the beginning. Who knows, you might get a more dangerous strain at the end of the day. And of course, you might get a more serious strain at the beginning and get a milder case at the end. So nobody really knows what is going on right now. That is why labs are actually carrying out experiments to know what is actually happening with the mutation of this virus. Of course, we are always late in discovering all these things in Nigeria. All those Europeans and Americans and Chinese have been doing this from the beginning. They have been making all this analysis and they have been testing all these things out, but we are kind of like late in the party. So we are just getting to it now, but at least we are doing something, and hopefully we are going to be able to fix some of the problems that are going to come around from the mutation of this virus. Hopefully everything is going to turn out for the best. Again, the virus is actually dangerous, not as dangerous as people have been saying before. According to the CDC, that's the Center for the Disease Control in the United States, it's only about 0.4% like fatal. So the fatality rate is only about 0.4%. So which means it's not as dangerous as what people used to think before, like maybe about 10% or 6%. It is actually lots less dangerous. But that doesn't mean that it still can't kill. It can still kill even healthy people, but it's very rare to kill healthy people, especially if you are a young, healthy adult. It is very like rarely going to kill you. Most of those people are going to fall prey to this thing are the older ones, which means the older ones should be kept safe. So even if somebody that is older has already had the virus and already survived, that doesn't mean that the person is necessarily going to survive the entire pandemic, because if the person gets infected with a more dangerous version of the virus, let's say a more dangerous strain of the virus, you don't know what is really going to happen to the person. So that's one thing we all have to pay attention to. So again, the labs are making sure that they are trying to synthesize, they are trying to sequence the genome of this virus and trying to know what is going on. It is very good. That is also going to help them to be able to discover the best way to move towards creating a vaccine and towards creating a drug that will be effective in the long run in treating the virus. Because at this stage, you are not really creating a drug or trying to create a vaccine for just one strain. You are creating for numerous strains. So you are basically trying to guess all the sorts of mutation that might happen to the virus and trying to account for all those things in the creation of your vaccine and in the creation of your drug. So those are the dangerous aspects of having to deal with this virus. Honestly, for anybody that's still out there contemplating and saying that this virus is not real, please get it through your brains. Please, it is better to be safe than sorry. Make sure you keep yourself safe. Of course, that doesn't mean nobody's going to be going outside, because our economy cannot handle an elongated shutdown, which is the reason why the president decided to lift the lockdown in basically everywhere. Of course, subject to the discretion of the governors in the state, because they are very closer to the people and they can decide what is more peculiar to their state, what is going to work for their state compared to the national level, which is the best thing, honestly. So anyway, I'm going to be keeping you guys updated on what's going on with this thing. Again, most certainly there is a new strain. In fact, many new strains already in Nigeria. Honestly, hopefully, we hope everything is going to be all right, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram if that's where you are, and it's just Naija Unsealed everywhere you go. Be seeing you guys next time.